The West is not in decline. The rest of the world is catching up. So from a historical point of view, uh, modern economic development, meaning the Industrial Revolution, the industrial age of the 19th century, then the age of electricity, the age of the automobile, now the age of information and the digital age, was led initially by the North Atlantic, what we call the West. Britain was the first industrialized country. Britain was the place where the steam engine created industrialization. Now, it was in the 19th century when the gap between the West, so-called, and the rest widened considerably. And that came partly because of the advances of technology, literacy, science in the Western world, and the imperial domination that brought over much of Asia, and by the end of the 19th century, all of Africa. So the West widened its lead, both through its economic and technological advances, but also the brutal age of high imperialism of Europe in the 19th century, and indeed until the middle of the 20th century. At the end of World War II, Europe had basically battered itself to death in two civil wars in the first half of the 20th century. And that opened the way for the colonized parts of the world to gain their political independence. And that happened, of course, in the late 40s and the 1950s, and then stretched out into the 1970s, and in some cases the 1980s, depending on whether the European powers fought wars to try to keep their colonies or let them go through exhaustion or for other reasons. But in any event, from the second half of the 20th century, countries were independent for the first time, typically in more than 100 years. And what did they do? They began to catch up. First thing they did was engage in education, which the European imperial powers did not offer to most of their subjects, certainly not in any quality that would enable their colonies to achieve economic development. I raise all of this because what has happened is a normal process where Asia and now Africa and other parts of the non-Western world are achieving economic development by raising educational standards, most fundamental part of economic development, building infrastructure, and in many cases, and China's, of course, the most notable in the world, moving from catching up to moving forward by becoming great innovators of new technologies on their own.